real estate is one of the most dysfunctional industries you could possibly devise. Like from top to bottom, no part of it makes sense. There's 17 different people involved in a transaction. Yeah. Every one of those people wants to keep their part of the transaction as complicated and confused as possible so they keep themselves employed. Like it's a dumpster fire from top to bottom. So what I tell people is let's look at what you actually do versus what you think you do. That is in and of itself, what is the mistake they make in the transactional process is to look at what they do as something more than what it really is. Vikram is like, preach on, brother, because this is like probably ready. I can see him like twitching in this. Every agent says to me, Lance, I don't want to come off as salesy. And I'm like, okay, great. Let's look at what you're doing. Well, what did you do this week? Oh, I cranked out a CMA to all these people that showed up on a list. Well, did you ask them if they wanted it? No. And I'm like, well, there's nothing more salesy than that. Oh, so nothing says I hate you as much as shoving somebody on a mailing list. You have just deadened the relationship right there, and you are intrinsically taking somebody that you've done the work to build trust with and basically said, peace out, I'm now mass marketing to you. You were irrelevant to me, and as soon as you need something for another transaction, let me know. And by the way, I'm going to be stupefied as to why you forgot about me and used somebody else.
You're listening to the number one real estate podcast in the world. We talk with real estate professionals all across North America about their wins, losses, lessons, stories, help you win in your local markets today. My name is Cody from Sharon Street. I'm joined with Vikram Deal of the Real Estate Sales Academy. Vikram, last episode of the day. I think we're on the third or fourth podcast today. I don't know. I can't remember. I don't remember either. But man, what's happening? Like, you know, what's
you tell me. I took the last one for like 17 minutes, and we're probably gonna have a drop off at level at second 36 when I took the mic over. So you tell me.
Yeah, you know, that was a monologue, but every once in a while I like to allow you to have your monologue. And that was a monologue. You're welcome. You know, I'll talk sweet nothings into your ear just for you. But, things are good. You know, just a couple more weeks in Medellin, Colombia, then back to Canada for a bit. And things are busy, man. We're getting a ton of people signing up for our trial. I think we've gotten, like, I was chatting with Sharon about this. I know you and I were chatting about this week, just getting really clear on like the avatar that we really love to serve. Like, I think like in the beginning, we were like, hey, like, you know, wanting to help everyone, where it's like, you know, specifically with my agency that I go like the podcast is for any agent out there, but with our agency, really getting clear on like helping team leads that have databases that they're really not reactivating. So like, I know that like we took your database recently,
4,300 8-year-old leads.
Yeah. And converting them to appointments, which is always fun, converting them to live.
Heidi has 6 appointments this week with leads that are anywhere from 2014 to 2018. And they're anywhere from $850K to one guy wants to buy 15 million, and he's already got 15 million in real estate. So he's like, I need 15 million more in the next 5 years to retire.
Yeah.
And he's already got 15 million. So it's not like a bullshit guy. And 7.5-year-old lead.
Yeah, man. It's, I remember like when we started calling, I started looking at the forms that were getting filled out, and I was looking at these. I'm like, bro, these are like really good leads. You're like, yeah, I've spent $200,000 on Zillow. So,
that was like the yearly check that we were stroking to Zillow. But yeah, again, we were doing it. Oh, the Alexa just told me there's a heat advisory. Oh, that's in Miami. So that was, you know, going into like, you know, why a lot of agents fail is because they're thinking about today and they're not thinking about next month, or they're not thinking about 3 months later. Even though they say they want to be relationship based and they're like, I don't want to be a transactional agent, the way they transact is all right now. And the way that they follow up with people, it's all right now. Like the first question out of their mouth, and I think Lance and I and you will get into this. The first question is like, have you been pre-approved? Or when they're doing a follow-up call, it's like, hey, we talked 3 months ago. My CRM popped up a message saying it's time to call you back. So I'm just calling you back. Are you ready to move forward in selling your home? I'm like, how did that work out? Like, oh, they always give me an excuse like, oh, the interest rates, we're not ready. I'm like, why are they moving? Like, they need a bigger house. I'm like, that's not why people move. They're like, what do you mean? It's like, that's not why people move. People move because there's an emotional. Why do people buy a Ferrari? Because they need 800 horsepower to get them 0 to 60 from the grocery store at the milk line back home because heaven forbid they're out for another 36 seconds? No. Why do people buy a Ferrari, Cody?
How it makes them feel.
How it makes you feel. Why do people buy 6,000 square foot houses? Because they feel good coming to a 6,000 square foot house. They don't need 6,000 square feet because, like, dude, we've lived in like really small places and really big places. So, the sales conversation is interesting that people have with themselves, and then they have that same conversation with the prospect, and then they wonder why they don't make sales.
And I think it's really interesting, especially in the real estate space. And I'm really excited to introduce our guest today, chatting just the psychology of sales, and somebody that has spent a ton of time at Compass, a ton of time as an executive trainer.
He's got a lot of books behind him, and he drinks out of a mason jar, which is a double plus in my book.
A double whammy. But I'm excited to introduce Lance. And the one of the cool things is we were chatting on Wednesday, and we were just kind of prepping for I think it was Wednesday. I don't know. I don't even know what day it is today. We were chatting at some point this week about kind of the podcast. And as I was like going through and prepping for this podcast, I was thinking about like, what is the direction that we can kind of take this podcast and chat? Like, right. And I'm really excited to chat about the psychology of sales, because I think that specifically in the real estate space, if you go to any other space, I think insurance, in solar, in car sales, they tend to see themselves more as salespeople, where some agents do and some agents don't see themselves as sales professionals, and they don't necessarily treat the game like sales, like a sales profession. They don't do the things that they need to do in order to drive sales, in order to drive relationships.
Yep.
So we're going to get a whole bunch of that. We're going to jam on a whole bunch of different things. Lance, why don't you give us a high level Cold Notes version of who you are, how you got into the real estate space, what you're up to now, and then we can get right into it.
Yeah, totally. Well, first of all, thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate the time to chat with both of you. And I'm not going to lie, I had to put mute on because I was like rocking back and forth and twitching at some of the things that you already Vikram was talking about, because I was like, I can answer that. I can also answer that. Well, Ferrari, I can tell you that one too. But, so just really quickly on me, been in and around the real estate space for a lot of years, was an agent for a period of time, worked my way up into being the chief innovation officer for the largest Sotheby's Realty affiliate in the U.S., moved over and switched into Compass, was the national head of agent development for Compass, overseeing 30,000 agents and their growth process. Started my own company to help agents really honestly better understand how they connect with people in a more meaningful way. And again, talk about relationship-driven sales and things like that. But my passion has always been in the really behavioral psychology and what makes people do what they do, why they do it, how we feel, and how we connect at a deeper level. And so, all that gets blended together into currently what I do now. I work with individuals, particularly in and around sort of like executive function support, as well as running a couple programs that help people prioritize, help people lose some of that time blindness that we have and be better at connecting to what their strengths are, while also respecting, hey, we got weaknesses, and like, stop trying to change. Like, I saw this thing out there, but like, I got to change everything about me. No, you don't. You're fine the way you are. Let's figure out what works a little bit, what doesn't. Let's kind of move forward with that. So that's where we focus in the space that I work in currently.
I love psychology when it comes to the humans, because we are very predictable in our behaviors if you understand certain things. And like I grew up selling. When I was 17, I got a job selling Cutco. I didn't realize it was a 1099. It was your own business. But a lot of the things you talked about, right? As a 17-year-old, I partied, man. We were smoking weed, drinking beers. We had our East Side hookup where we could buy everything. It was like a one-stop shop. And I like to hang out with my friends in my parents' house. They had a huge house, big pool. They all knew good-looking girls, and I had the money and I had the house. But if I said, hey, show up at 8 o'clock, well, my parents are home. That doesn't work as a 17-year-old. So I had to figure out at a young age, like, how do I make a lot of money in a short period of time, party through the day, and then go to the office at night to make my second round of calls? So like jumping into humans, right? Jumping into relationships, how do we just start like the process? This is predominantly real estate agents, but we do have other people from other industries that listen in, because this all kind of works together. But like, if you were to talk to the agent population, which you understand very well, where do you think is one of the areas for like an opportunity for improvement to actually be the relationship agent versus the transactional agent that most are, which is why they go out of business, unfortunately, in like 3 or 4 years?
So it's a fantastic question. And one of the core things that I try and help stress for people when we start talking about this specific subject is let's be clear, real estate is one of the most dysfunctional industries you could possibly devise. Like from top to bottom, no part of it makes sense. There's 17 different people involved in a transaction. Yeah. Every one of those people wants to keep their part of the transaction as complicated and confused as possible so they keep themselves employed. Like it's a dumpster fire from top to bottom. So what I tell people is let's look at what you actually do versus what you think you do. That right there is the answer to your question. How do I build healthier, more meaningful connections and grow my business by being truly relationship-driven, not transactional? Accept reality. Most people do not accept their own realities. We spend a lot of time trying to figure out how do I get all these things from other people and then figure out how do I, use that. But let's boil it down to basics. What is the same Ferrari question that you just asked, right? It's about how people feel. What is it that a real estate agent does? Every time I ask agents, I was like, what do you do? Oh, we buy and sell houses. No, you do not. You don't buy and sell houses. It's really simple. You ready? How can I prove this? If I take a house and I put the price really low, what's going to happen to it?
It's going to sell for 100, Bob.
Okay. And what the hell does that have to do with me? Nothing. Right. So what does somebody do? A real estate agent is involved in the third most stressful time of a human being's life, right behind death and job loss, with the single largest financial asset they have. And yet, what kind of communication do we give them? I have great local market knowledge. I'm a trusted advisor. Nobody cares. My newsletter, my open house, my just sold, my new listing, the how to cut or paint your front door in spring, my newsletter. By the way, you haven't opened the last 5 newsletters I've sent. Here's another newsletter. Nobody cares. The truth of the matter is, how do you build meaningful relationships and connections with people except the reality of what you do is being a guide and a consultant in a process? That's vastly different than this idea that you are some sort of essential cog in the wheel of the transactional flow. It's not real. So, I think that's a key point to start with to begin to ground ourselves around how do we move.
It's real. Go for it.
So and it's so interesting because I just even grappling with that, I think some agents would have like a difficulty to be like, no, I do help them buy and sell real estate. That's what I do. Like they would have a really hard time accepting I think they know that, but they don't always necessarily accept that. So where I'm curious is like, okay, if you're a guide, you are the person that walks them through the process, makes them helps them through the emotions that they're going through. Okay. What do you think that agents should be doing differently in the transaction process that good, are there things that you see? Because after 30,000 agents, you see agents doing really great things, and you see agents, obviously you've seen before, that just aren't doing great. And oftentimes sometimes it's in direct relation to the amount of money they make, and sometimes it's not. So what do you think makes a great agent in the market today?
So your point right there was really important because you said, there's agents, there are great agents that are doing certain things, and there's not great agents that are doing certain things. The first thing is stop doing the same thing. Point blank. Because if you think about it, look, as I just said, you're involved in the third most stressful time of a human being's life with the single largest financial asset they have. You are riding this emotional roller coaster with somebody. You're dealing with their marital problems, their financial issues, their kids' lives. You're invested in all of this process, right? And throughout the highs and the lows for months and months and months on end. You go through all of this with them. You bring them to the promised land. You get them to fruition. You land the plane with them. They are ecstatic. And what do? You put them on a mailing list. Nothing says I hate you as much as shoving somebody on a mailing list. You have just deadened the relationship right there, and you are intrinsically taking somebody that you've done the work to build trust with and basically said, peace out, I'm now mass marketing to you. You were irrelevant to me, and as soon as you need something for another transaction, let me know. And by the way, I'm going to be stupefied as to why you forgot about me and used somebody else. That is in and of itself, what is the mistake they make in the transactional process is to look at what they do as something more than what it really is. And I'll give you one last really cool example, because I can see Vikram is like, preach on, brother, because this is like probably ready. I can see him like twitching in this. I will give you another example. Every real estate license in America, you ask an agent, what are some of the things you tell people about your value proposition and what you do? Agents, I'm a great negotiator. Tell people that all the time. Let's talk about behavioral psychology, right? Here's one of the main things. What is the number one thing on every real estate license across the United States of America that it says you cannot do? You are not allowed to what? Negotiate on your client's behalf. And yet what's the language that we use talking to people? I'm a great negotiator. Here's the thing. What is negotiation? Negotiation is that you are the sole person allowed to make every executive decision without consulting anyone to get to a conclusion of something. So you're not actually a negotiator. What you are is a mediator. And what they should be saying to people is, I'm a phenomenal mediator. And I've studied that. My job is to take information that you give me, put that into a more natural language and make it more digestible to somebody else, take what they say and put that into a more digestible language for you so that we can get to the place that you want to be at. That's what mediation is. The difference between a hostage crisis situation and a hostage negotiator and a court mediator, right? That's the goal there. But how we talk to people during a transaction, what we do, it's not my opinion and my wants, right? We got this, we got that. We didn't get anything. They got it. I'm just as a consultant and a guide. I'm a Sherpa is what I talk about in a process. My job is to help guide you in something, not to put you on my back and carry you up the mountain.
I'm not sure if you're familiar with Sharon. If you know Sharon, I would assume everybody knows Sharon.
I've heard of him. I've never had the pleasure of meeting him yet, but we have a very, very close mutual friend in common in Sunny Lake Hahn.
Cody May. I remember we were jamming about something a while ago, and agents, right? The need for significance, as Tony Robbins talks about, the need for significance it's their number one. Like for a lot of agents, it's the number one. And as an agent, like it was crucial that we always felt like we were in control of the whole situation, because when you come from a scarcity mindset, you're always in fight or flight. There's always limited resources. And if I don't get it, then my family, my village, they're going to die and somebody else is going to live. And so if you're always coming from that mindset, I remember when my dad, one day he said, "Son, are you sure you want to get out of real estate? You know, the world's competitive." I was like, "Dad, have you ever been a realtor before?" Like the air is thin at the top because most real estate agents don't actually get into the business with the thought that they're a consultant, that they're a business consultant that happens to be consulting around the product of real estate.
That's right.
And if you understand that, it's very simple. Like we don't get people a transformation. We give them the tools and then they decide whether or not they want to transform.
That's right. 110%. And a core concept here is also recognizing, and we talk about behavioral psychology around it, is understanding the mindset that somebody has coming into real estate to begin with, right?
Talk about that.
There are not a lot of people that come from, graduated from college, came out, had a business degree, and got right into real estate. That's not the common path that you see for people. Oftentimes it's a second, third, or fourth career. Yeah. Oftentimes it's, they've come in because something else wasn't working the way they wanted it to, or they had a family and they wanted more flexibility and time, all good stuff. Coming in the mindset right off the bat is important because the first thing is they've already come in understanding what people's perception of what a real estate agent exists. Now, I swear to you, I saw this study somewhere. I'm not making this up. I cannot point you to it. It was a global study of trusted service industries. And in this global study of trusted service industries, real estate ranked below prostitution. I was like, okay, that makes sense. Why? Because, in one category, what the relationship is. You're exchanging a relationship. Yeah. And trust is already given. It's very clear. In real estate, there's an element of mistrust that's right off the bat, right? And this concept of that this person, I have to have this person here. I'm not sure why, but I sort of do. It's a requirement of the transaction. And then what is the behavior that we've shown throughout the years, right? Every agent says to me, "Lance, I don't want to come off as salesy." And I'm like, "Okay, great. Let's look at what you're doing." "Well, what did you do this week?" "Oh, I cranked out a CMA to all these people that showed up on a list." "Well, did you ask them if they wanted it?" "No." And I'm like, "Well, there's nothing more salesy than that." "Oh." So, knowing that, gents, coming into this, it's like you have to kind of recognize that that's what we have to work away from. Great agents are confident in what they do because they're confident in how they're doing it and confident in who they are. And that's the first biggest thing with the people that I work with, that you start to see a major shift, separate from like executive functioning things and being better and building better business practices. Like that's a root problem.
It's funny, the CMA thing, because I talk to a lot of agents, and so what do you do in the market? Oh, we're sending out our CMAs. I'm like, did you, like, it's great. You got 500 past clients over the last 20 years. You're sending them a CMA to, but did you ever ask for permission, or did you ever say, like, hey guys, one of the benefits of working with me is that we give you a yearly update of the actual value of your home based off of real data, not like, that's one of the, oh, that's amazing. Yeah, would that benefit you? Oh, yeah, what? Oh, okay, great. I'm just going to check the box and put you on the list. So every year on your, January 1st, we start to work on it. So we're going to crank this out for you. Is that cool? Like, yeah. Oh, cool. And if you do that, then what goes to, from a marketing tactic, it becomes a benefit to the client. And now they are like, oh, it's January, babe. Let's see what Vikram sends us. Like, did we go up in value? Or because they can rely on it because we've brought it up and they've given us permission to now market to them.
100% correct. I mean, there's so many examples of that. So many examples that the disconnect is so great in understanding the behaviors that we take and then the impact and effect they have on the end. Another great example, and I love this one, happy home anniversary. I talk to agents all the time. I'm like, well, what are you doing to connect to your clients? So every year I send them a happy home anniversary note. I'm like, okay, more than the first anniversary? Yeah. And I'm like, so they've been there for 12 years and you keep wishing them a happy home anniversary every year? Yeah, it's a wonderful touch to show them I care. No, it's a way to remind them every year that when they're ready to move, you can still sell their house. Like, people aren't dumb. They know that. Gifting is another big one. Pie giveaways, my shredding event, like all these things. It's like, well, what, pie giveaway and Thanksgiving. It's nice, but why are you doing it? Because it's marketing and they know it's an agent thing. The best time to give a gift is a random Tuesday in June.
Yeah.
With no logo, no branding, no nothing, with it something being about that person that you remember know about them. That's what builds trust. That's what allows someone to realize that you actually care about them and who they are. So it's a very confusing, and I get it. It's hard for agents to decipher because they get so much noise. The coaching industry is full of just noise.
So and me and Vic have had this conversation. The coaching industry is absolutely filled with noise, and it's like the coaching space is very filled right now with people that have never actually sold real estate, telling people how to sell real estate. Sharon and I have had tons of these conversations about, and same with me and Vikram, about like talking about how to talk to people when you've never sat in Mr. and Mrs. Jones's living room. Talk to us a little bit about the things that agents should be doing when you're training them and you're teaching them about like even the example you gave about like the random Tuesday, sending a gift that actually like how can somebody build an actual relationship based business versus like, I think everyone's like, oh, I'm a relationship based, like they don't do, they say these things, but then they don't actually act on these things where we see it consistently. But how can a real estate agent really differentiate themselves in the marketplace and actually be that advisor, be that consultant, be different than what other people are doing and other people are saying?
Yeah. So the first and foremost thing when I talk to people that is a big misconception is, or a mistake that I see a lot, is that people treat everybody the same. You have these databases in which we've been just hoarding email addresses, like things in grandma's attic. Like it's like an A&E episode of Hoarders. Like there's emails that we've collected. There's 8,000 people in here. When you start treating all these people the same, you have a problem, right? That mass email blasting stuff that's going out. So the first thing is you have to begin to segment out people based on a couple things. So I look at people's databases and I say, look, there's 3 core things. And we teach this in the Good Sphere program as part of my company that we run. But the first is there's 3 things. One, right off the bat, how do I know you? Like if I don't understand how I know you, then I don't really understand how to best interact with you. The second thing is, how do I feel about you? That is incredibly important because there are people that I love talking to, that I love hanging out with, that I love spending time with, right? That's different, and I can't treat those people the same as someone that just walked into an open house I don't know anything about. How do I, so there's love somebody, I like somebody, right? I know who you are, or I have no idea who the hell you are, nor do I care about you. That's another category, right? And you start to see patterns in that, where you've got really of 8,000 people in a database, 2,000 people in a database, those what we call the love people and the like people are about 10% of your whole database. So if you begin to spend quality time in that 10%, most of the successful agents that I see those agents that are spending that time in there, they already have 90% of their income coming from only that demographic, but they're treating those people exactly the same as the remaining other 90%. So you have to have a place and a space to be able to, one, connect with people more meaningfully when you care about them differently. And two, you are actually more likely to take action in doing things that we know. And that's all, we'll talk about that separately about how hard it is to do stuff. But you're more likely to take action on that 10% with the people that you love and like when you have them separated and you know who they are, versus I haven't marketed in a while, haven't touched people, I haven't done stuff. So let me just crank through this list and I got to get this blast out. And it's like Super Bowl weekend. Here's the, hot taco recipe for the weekend I'm cranking out. Like, that's where you're sort of like, yeah, you're losing touch there. So, I look to really help people understand, know your audience, know those people, know what they care about, know what they love. That's your highest referring group. That's your highest engaged group. And don't treat those people as a commodity. Treat them as somebody that are helping grow your life, both personally and professionally, because there's a connection there you want to maintain.
People always ask me, what do I say to my clients?
Yeah.
After we close the deal, I'm like, I don't know. Why don't you start off by asking them something that you learned about them? I was like, if you were out there showing 6 or 7 houses and you're doing a halfway decent job, you're going to ask them questions like, hey, if you had this big dining room, what kind of functions would you have in here? Oh, we would do like XYZ. We would do XYZ. Oh, and what type of people do you invite to these functions? Oh, we invite these people and those people. I'm like, just write that down, right? Just write that down. And, if you service a niche of people, like they typically are the same type of people. So they do a lot of the similar activities. And so like my niche was Indian tech guys. Now they're a different style Indian than I was. So I knew that like when I got invited to their parties, it was a very big deal than like me. I'm like, oh, okay, he showed up. There's 50 other people. Cool. He doesn't show up. Okay, that's okay. 2 people are busy. No big deal. But to these guys, it's very different. And so it's not hard to connect with people, especially after the transaction's over. Like hey, how are the kids doing? Like, how'd they adjust with the school? Oh my God, I can't believe little Sally's in 8th grade already. Like, that's crazy. I saw her on Facebook. She's gotten so much bigger. What's new in your guys' life? You don't have to ask for business, because if you just stay in normal contact with these people, they're going to give you business, because when their friends like, oh, I want some real estate. And if you teach them some language patterns and things like that so that they know how to refer you, it'll change things up. Unfortunately, we got to wrap up here. Cody messaged me. Cody's the bad cop. I'm the good cop. Lance, if you could give, because you've worked with a ton of people in this industry, ton of agents, ton of executives. If you could give, a 5-second air clip, which I'm just, it's not 5 seconds. What would you tell an agent to do, or a team leader that wants to help their agents, or even a manager, a broker, owner? What would you say they should be more focused on moving forward in this AI-driven world where everybody's trying to remove themselves from the transaction? What would you say to those people so that they can build a long-lasting relationship?
Love the question. I would tell them that you have to have a 3-stage approach. There has to be that type of much further hands-off, automated for those. Again, remember, bifurcating those people, the people that I don't really have any connection with, that I can express things that might hook them in to be interested and ask a question. Easy engagement, easy question, right? At the second level, you have to have things that you're doing that build connections by you being out in the world with people. You have to have people understand who you are, what you love. People care, like all basic things. People want to be heard, appreciated, loved, and understood. But it's about them. Stop talking about yourself. Start talking, as you said, about them. So have that second tier where you're spending time with those people, not a client event. Spend time. Go to a local pub, invite a bunch of people that you don't know all that well, have some fun, because that's what you love, right? And the third part is really start to leverage as much as you can the concept that most of what happens, why you just said this, and I love that you let him, we're sorry we're out of time, that we don't have great continued relationships isn't because we don't want to. It's because of certain limitations that people have to recognize that I got busy, and you started the whole podcast with this, right? Agents have only 2 periods of time in their life, now and not now. That's it. And they're so good at the now. It's the not now stuff that we got to take drips and drabs and bring that in. So have a program, have a system, have a little bit of stuff that helps you bring some of the not now on a weekly basis into your focus and view so that you have a continual campaign process that you're moving through. Because at the end of the day, you shouldn't be worried about pipelines and the lack of and things like that. It's just better focus around things that are simpler, not more complicated, and doing more and more and more.
Lance, you echo a lot of the sentiment we have when we're speaking with our agents, when we're speaking with amongst ourselves. And I just want to say thank you. If somebody were to want to reach out to you, they want to learn a little bit more about what you do, where's the best place they can reach you to have a conversation?
Yeah, just go to lancependleton.com. You can read all about me, what I do, how we do it. And there's a spot on there you can actually tap in and shoot me a note. That's the best place to reach out. And I'd love to hear people's thoughts.
Lance, I want to say thank you. And I want to say thank you for tuning into another episode of the RE Agent Podcast. We'll see you soon.